For the Record with Ort Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I do have a guest in the studio. Now we're going to be talking about International Property Day and all of the facilities that are in place for dealing with intellectual property here in the Cayman Islands. That conversation is going to take place with Miss Catherine Dinsple Powell, Miss Candice Westby, and Miss Melissa Adderley. And I'm going to, while I have given you their names, I'm going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves, say who they are, or what they do as well. Also, a little bit of housekeeping. We will open the phone lines up at some point in time because this is a very important subject that we're talking about. Those of you who are creatives or in business or whatever, those of you who are intended to do so as well. And if you have any questions or comments in relation to it, they are happy to entertain those as well. So we're going to go, around the studio here and start with Miss Catherine Dinsple Powell, and she's no stranger to Radio Cayman. Neither are these ladies as well, because last week I listened to them intently as they discuss this. They're certainly quite knowledgeable about the subject as well. So we are encouraging you to listen keenly to this conversation. So, Ms. Catherine, starting with you.
Yes. Good morning, OC.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for having us, and good morning, all our listeners. I'm here with the director from the Intellectual Properties Office, and also with Ms. Adderley, and I'm from the Ministry of Financial Services and Commerce, and I'm fortunate to have remit for the Intellectual Properties Office. So enjoy working very closely with Ms. Candice and her team in this very important area.
Okay. Ms. Adderley.
Good morning, OC.
Good morning.
Good morning, the listening public. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Melissa Adderley. I'm the CEO and founder of Women's Haven. Women's Haven is an organic feminine care product brand. Our products are manufactured overseas in China. They are tested and certified by a third-party system before coming over to the West. Our distribution centers in the United States. Women's Haven covers about 10 Caribbean countries where you can find our products in supermarkets and pharmacies there. We also have trademarks in 5-6 different countries and counting as well, including the Cayman Islands. We're also a trademark brand on Amazon as well, the certified brand there, and we're sold in the United States and Canada as well. So I'm very happy to be here and talk about the importance of intellectual property. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ms. Westby.
Good morning, OC, and good morning to the listeners. Thank you for having us today. My name is Candice Westby, and I'm the Director of Intellectual Property for the Cayman Islands Intellectual Property Office, but I'll just say CIIPO for short because that's much easier to get to.
Okay, so we can start off by talking about the celebration of the day, and I see where it was introduced in the year 2000, 24 years ago.
Yes. The World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO, they are the UN body, the United Nations body responsible for intellectual property matters, globally. And they have member states, and every year they have different topics that they discuss, etc. in IP. And they are the ones who set the theme. So over the years, every year across the world, on this April 26th, we now celebrate World IP Day, where we highlight, based on the theme, different amazing entrepreneurs and creatives who are doing wonderful trailblazing things like Miss Melissa in the IP space.
Okay, yeah. And what is the theme for this year?
Yes, the theme for this year is the IP and the Sustainable Development Goals. So the focus is on using intellectual property to build innovation and creativity. That's the theme for this year.
Okay,
yeah.
Ms. Adderley, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I am very happy to be here to support this theme for intellectual property for this year. We are organic feminine care product brand. Our sanitary napkins, which we have here, If you can see them, they are made of aluminum packaging as well.
Okay.
It's a resealable packaging, going on our stance of being sustainable. So having intellectual property is very, very important, and having it registered and licensed is very important. I'm sure we will be discussing that today, as the importance of having an intellectual property, the circumstances that can happen to you around it. People can steal your brand, people can steal your information. So it's very, very important, because I feel as business owners, when we start off, intellectual property isn't the first thing that we think of. It's always about just trying to figure out business plan, this, that, and the other, and intellectual property is like the last thing we kind of think of, or we wait till something happens and then we start thinking about it. I think it needs to be a part of the initial conversations when thinking about being an entrepreneur, starting a business, a product, a brand, anything. That should be a part of the initial conversations with having intellectual property as an entrepreneur.
And can we talk about the establishment of our office here and the importance, of that as well?
Yes, it's so exciting. We started out as just a desk in the General Registry Department. So there was always intellectual property laws, but it was always from the UK that you would have to get registered first, and then we would recognize that right here. But we came to the modernization of our laws in 2016, but before that, the government had started making steps towards getting IP protection in place here. So in 2017, they expanded to now having direct registration of trademarks. So our local companies, entrepreneurs, they don't have to go to the UK first to register. You just file an application with CIIPO, and we will have that go through the process and register it for you. And then in 2021, the office was moved from under General Registry, and now it's its own department. So we have a very small team of 4 and the ground floor of the government building, but we deal with all the IP matters. Yes.
And being a separate entity now, how does that position you, in a positive way to talk a little bit about that?
So we have been able to move a lot of legislation and reform forward by focusing just on IP. I'm proud to say we're a revenue generating body for government. Our revenue stood at the highest last year of 2.3 million. We have about 8,000 items on the register between patents, designs, and trademarks. And so we've been able to focus on this area both locally and internationally. We're very active in the international space. We attend different forums to get persons aware that we have IP laws in place here. So there's been a focus from us to engage both local and international to make sure that we're seen as our motto is our mission statement is to be seen as a globally respected intellectual property center of excellence. So that's what we've been pushing. Yeah.
And in terms of those persons who are registering, or those entities that are registering with you, they're local as well as international?
Yes, we try to focus, especially during World IP Day, on getting our locals on the register, but a majority of what we have on the register are international companies, huge corporations. You think about Meta, you think about Nike, you think about food, clothing brands, any brand you can think about, we get applications from them to register here.
Now, what about the enforcement end of it? You register them. How do we go then about enforcing when there are breaches? How do we deal with them?
And I'm sure Melisha will jump in here too about her story with that. But
sure.
So the laws do name intellectual property infringement as a crime.
Okay.
So there are penalties in the law, both jail time, huge fines, in all the laws. So copyright, patents, designs, and trademarks, they all have offenses in there. We at CIIPO are not responsible for the enforcement part of it. That would be Customs and Border Control. If you suspect that someone is bringing in goods that are infringing on your rights, and then if they're already on the ground, then you would report that to the Department of Commerce and Investment, so DCI, and they, the enforcement arm of DCI would then take action on your behalf.
Yes, Melissa.
Yeah, so interesting topic that was spoken about numerous times over the past week. So for myself, I had an incident where a few years ago, I went to one of the local supermarkets just to go check on my products, restocking, and I saw a product on the shelf. And I was like, oh, what's this? So I picked it up and I read the words, and it was like all of my words, like you see my words in the back here, was like basically all of my words here. And I was like, what's this? Like, what? Anyway, I was really, really shocked. I couldn't believe it. Like, and, you know, it's important to know that just because you live in a small country like Cayman, you may think everybody know who you are. Nobody not go take my stuff. I mean, I'm known. It's me. It can happen to you, and that happened to me. I immediately went to contact the brand. I was like, "What are you doing?" And they were like, you know, we respect you and da 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 da. You just, you know, we see you as this, but you know, we didn't really mean to do it like that. I'm like, but that's not how you do business. you don't just take someone's words and slap it on your package and say how you respect them as being the first one here, and you, that don't make any sense. I had a lawyer. I filed a cease and desist. Made the lawyer explain to them thoroughly, like in comparison, what's on their packaging versus what I have copyrighted and trademarked. And they eventually responded with the lawyer's letter and said that there was a mistake and they removed the products off the shelf and had to change their packaging. I mean, I was fortunate enough that it didn't have to excel to the next level or escalate, you know what I mean? But it could happen. And just to say that, you know, not because you're in a small country like Cayman and everybody knows everybody, not saying it won't happen to you, people will still try. You know, and it's very, very important that I had a leg room to be able to say, well, I have intellectual property. This is my file. I was just in the process of filing my intellectual property when it happened. So I actually didn't have the official registration as yet. But once you submit your filing, you're covered with that process. And something important as well, I feel that business owners need to be aware of that. On your logos, like once you have intention of having intellectual property, put the little TM on the logo, because the TM there states that you're in the process. You have that idea, you have that ideology that I'm going to be trademarking this brand to let people know. Because some people think you can't put the TM until you're officially registered. But that's what the R is for. When you're officially registered, now you change that TM to the R. So that's why you'll see a difference between, like, why do some say TM, why do some say R. So once you have that ideology, okay, I'm going to trademark this idea, this brand, this image, just slap a little TM onto that. Let people know you're on a different level. This is a trademark. Don't try to copyright what I'm doing. So that's a very important point. I think a lot of entrepreneurs need to be aware of.
Okay, we're going to go to a commercial break. When we return, you know, with so many ways that people can be creative these days, the music industry, the YouTube, you know, so many things. I want to talk about the challenges, you know, that creators may have. How do you go about monitoring that as well? And I think you answered this question already, but one of our listeners wanted to know whether or not there's a distinction between trademarking and intellectual, you know, property rights as well. So if you could explain those, that would be nice. Folks, don't change that dial. Please stay tuned. If you are a business person, or if you intend on going into business, or if you're just a creator, you create something and you want to hold on to it. You see, you know, some of those entertainers, their portfolios being sold to huge companies for hundreds of millions of dollars. That may be you one of these days. You may not even enjoy it. Your estate, your family may enjoy it later if you ensure that you protect it throughout your lifetime as well. Don't change that dial. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
This is For the Record.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. It is my pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning Miss Catherine Dinspel Powell, Miss Candice Westby, and Miss Business Owner Miss Melissa Adderley. We're talking about International Property Day, the rights, you know, as well. If you want information, you can also go on to the CIIPO website, CIIPO.
Yes.
Yep. And you can get lots of information there. There's information on there about celebrating World IP Day 2024. And is this part of your motto, building our common future with innovation and creativity?
That's the theme,
That's the theme. And it is extremely important for you to understand your rights to the things that you create as well. And here in the Cayman Islands, we talk about us being in an advanced stage in terms of legislation and everything else, and this is another area where we have demonstrated that as well. Yep.
Yes.
So before we went to the commercial break, we wanted to know the difference between
Right.
copywriting and
Yes.
intellectual property.
Right.
Yeah.
So, intellectual property is the umbrella term you use to describe a set of rights that you get when you make creations of the mind. So, when you think of the root word in intellect, it's your mind, right? So, IP covers creations of the mind, and then we have different types of rights that we call intellectual property rights or IPRs under that umbrella term. So trademark is one. Women's Haven brand is an example of a trademark that covers your logo, right? And that can even include personal names. You know, celebrities always tend to register their name as their brand. So that's where you would have trademarks. Then copyright is the one for our creatives. So that covers our musicians, our writers, our poets. It also covers computer programs. So if you're an IT person, your computer programming would be covered by copyright. So that's your second IP area. And then we also have patents, which covers inventions. So that's our scientists, our engineers, our pharmacists, chemists who create new pharmaceutical products. They can get those registered as patents. And then the lesser known one I call the stepchild of IP is design rights or industrial designs, and that covers the shapes of your products. If you're thinking of these big jewelry brands that have iconic shapes of earrings and watches, Rolex and so on, just the shape of those watches would be covered by a design right. So you have, those are the four main areas of IP, and then it's up to you, whatever you create, then it fits into one of those categories.
Okay. Now, are any of those rights, do any of those expire? For instance, I was reading a story about a particular product in the United States. Actually, it has to do with cycling because I'm big into cycling. And Garmin makes a radar
Yes.
that picks up any vehicles coming behind you, and you have a screen. You can either use your smartphone or your bicycle computer, and it shows you the number of vehicles behind you, and it beeps and everything. Another company, which is Trek, one of the big U.S. bicycle manufacturers, now have just come out with something similar. They had to wait because they had to wait until the patent expired before they could do it.
You know the answer already.
So which one, other than patents, are there other rights that may expire?
Right.
Yep.
So patents are only for 20 years. And so that's why that company had to wait, because once that 20-year term expires, the patent then goes into the public domain and it's free for you to use and improve upon and so on.
Okay.
That's the same for design. So the shape of your products, those are only for 25 years, and that's up to you to renew every 5 years. It's not that you get 25 outright.
Okay.
And so if that design rights holder weren't to renew, then the rights expire and you're free to take that shape. So that's why you would see we have improvements on watches and vehicles and so on. Every time Kia comes out with a new design for a car, they have to register each design. And then after that 25 years, you'll see something come out similar from another company because that design now has expired. For trademarks, it's 10 years when you register, but you can renew every 10 years. So those rights are more perpetual as long as the proprietor renews. And then copyright, depending on the type of work, but it's generally 70 years from the year the author dies. So if you think about Bob Marley's estate, that keeps going because it's 70 years from the year he passed. So you would, and then remember, like you said, these are property rights. So you can pass it to your heirs. You mentioned earlier, you can will it, you can leave a legacy. So that right doesn't expire with you. It goes on to your children and your children's children as long as the rights are still in place. Yeah.
Now, can we talk a little bit about costs? Because there may be persons who have developed things, who have designed things, but not generating any revenue from it because they haven't really put it out there yet per se. From a financial viability standpoint, are the costs associated with registering and continuing to register commensurate with the benefits that you may receive, at a later date?
Yes, that's a very good question. So the initial registration cost for trademarks, for example, at CIIPO is $200 and then $50 for publishing in the IP Gazette. So, but we do have currently in place, and Ms. Kat will talk about that a little bit more, that you do have to use a registered agent. So that might bring in some other costs that you would need to consider when you're developing your business plan. But outright, we always advise, and Melicia's been saying it as well, that you think about factoring in that $250 into your business plan, because like she said, you might think nobody will infringe on my rights, but it's better to get it registered because you can't get DCI to enforce if it's not registered under the law or CBC. So you want to me, the initial cost, that $250 outweighs, the long term of not having it registered. And then also when you're thinking about raising finance, these intellectual property rights have value.
Exactly.
I saw a study yesterday that said globally, intangible assets, intellectual property is valued at $63 trillion worldwide. And about 80% of your company's assets are intangible, although businesses don't realize it. So you want to make sure that you are protecting that because it does have value and you can use it to raise funds through licensing, franchising, etc. So there is commercial viability in having your intellectual property rights.
Okay, we're going to talk about the legislation and any new legislation that is likely to be required as you move along, things change. But so I don't have to interrupt Ms. Catherine. We're going to take a commercial break now, and then when we return, we're going to talk about legislation and possible legislative changes as well. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back. Curtis, my pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning, Ms. Catherine Dinspel Powell, Ms. Melicia. Right.
That's right.
I always get that wrong in the board meetings as well. Adelaide. And also with us, Ms. Candice Westby. We're talking about International Property Day, the celebration, but more important, the importance of protecting your creations, protecting your products that you have, protecting your ideas that you have, as well. And remember, there's always someone or something out there much smarter than you. We now have artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
So they're much smarter, as well. And it's much more difficult to find them and identify them, as well. So we're going to ask Ms. Catherine to talk about legislation.
Yeah, I think Candice mentioned earlier that we have sort of embarked on a program of constant improvement of our legislation because we obviously, in our goal to be a world-class IP hub, we want to make sure that we are maintaining best practice and sort of staying out there ahead of the front of the pack. I think Candice underplayed how well respected and well known she is in her profession. A great deal. So I think she's done a lot to cultivate relationships through the World Intellectual Properties Office, through the International Trademarks Association, and I think has been seen as a bit of a consultant in some areas, has been invited to join in on forums and working groups.
Great.
To really bolster the profession globally. And I think that helps us in the legislative space because then it also means that we have other people in other jurisdictions to bounce ideas off of. I think we're also fortunate because the minister established a IP working group, and it's a public and private sector partnership between the ministry, the department, and some of the local law firms that have IP expertise. So that also helps us with the legislative development because we have some in-house expertise in that area. And so we're constantly on that sort of improvement regime for a jurisdiction to promote the IP space itself. And then I think the focus, particularly for this year and next year, is really to open up channels at the grassroots level for individuals and micro and small business owners. And that it extends in the commerce space as well. But I think here the legislative change that we would be seeking to make to enable that is to remove the need for individuals and micro and small business owners to have to go through an agent in order to register their trademarks. And then we're also looking at waiving the initial trademark fees for individuals and micro and small business owners too, at the local level.
Yes, yes, yes.
Wonderful.
Well, while we're on that, we can segue right into the process,
Yes.
the applications process. You
Yes.
know, what does it involve?
Yes, so we're very excited about this change. So currently, if you want to register, you would have to take your brand, your logo that you've designed to a registered agent, and then they will help you complete the application form and submit it on your behalf. Before the end of this year, as Ms. Catherine mentioned, we will have removed that requirement. So what it's going to be is that you design your logo, your brand. So if you're thinking about register you and you're a local SME, you might want to hold off, just put your TM like Malaysia said. And, you know, when we make that change, you can send in your application. You will come to the office, fill out the form. We'll assist you with filling it out. So earlier I mentioned that the cost is $200, and that includes what is considered to be one class of goods or services. So when you think about registering, it's not that you just send in your trademark and that's it. You have to tell us what you're going to applying that brand to. So are you going to be selling goods, or are you going to provide it in services?
Okay.
And then what type of goods or services you're going to be providing. And we use an international classification system. It's called the NICE classification. And they have divided goods and services into 45 classes. So, for example, class 35 covers clothing, headgear, and footwear. So if you're going to be, let's say you're a fashion designer and you're going to be creating clothes or manufacturing clothes, then you would submit your application with that class 35. But let's say you want to add, you are not only making the clothes, but you're also going to be having a retail store to sell it. So that's a second class, right? That's a service class. So you'll add that to your application, and that is $75. So your application includes one class, and then if you add, that's an additional $75, and your application will cover everything that you intend to do with that brand. And then once it's sent in, we examine it in accordance with the law. So we have to make sure it's not descriptive. You know, if I am planning to open a donut shop, I can't just say Candace's Donuts, because that's describing, you know, what I'm going to be selling. It has to be unique, you know. So you think about Kodak and Xerox and all these brands that are so made up words. You want something that's really, really unique. Women's Haven with the logo, the colors, etc. You know, you want to have a unique brand, and we'll examine your application. If all is well, we put it through to publication, and then within 60 days of that, you get your registration certificate.
Now, do we find that persons may do this in anticipation of something? Like, for instance, when the whole .com
Yes.
thing, right? Where you had people registering,
Domain
you know, all
names.
of these domain names, and then when you go to use them, then you find that it's already
Yes.
registered, and
Gotta buy it.
if you want it, then you have to purchase it. You know, from them.
them.
Can you speak to that? And can, with the vast amount of knowledge that you have, when we look at the costs here in the Cayman Islands, how does it compare internationally in terms of
Right.
what we're charging for
yes.
registration?
So when you think about, we call it trademark squatting. So a person would maybe travel overseas or even locally, and they'll see a brand that looks really good. They'll see that it's gaining traction, etc. And then they say, you know what, I'll register that, similar to what they did with domain names. And then unfortunately, it's the first person who files that gets the rights. So if they file your brand before you would then either have to fight them during the publication period. You can oppose the registration and say that, you know, I'm the one who created it, give your evidence, etc. If it's already on the register, then you have to go through a process of getting it invalidated. So there are remedies in the law to allow you to get that mark off the register, but it is possible. And so that's another reason we encourage you, you know, from the outset to think about registration. And then when it comes to the cost, we did do a study when we implemented in 2017. Before we implemented, we looked at the costs across various jurisdictions, the UK, the US, Australia, and then also within the Caribbean region. And our fees are comparable to all these jurisdictions. So a lot of offices are actually raising fees within the last year as well, regionally especially. And I think the Canadian office raised by
Jamaica raised,
75% or something like that. But we have kept steady since 2017, and now even looking to remove for locals. So yeah.
And it's not like you're competing with each jurisdiction, because
No.
if you want to protect yourself, you have to
Right.
do it.
That's
Can you
right.
speak to that, Ms. Melissa, in terms of how many jurisdictions you may want to
Right,
cover?
exactly. So like with Women's Haven, we are in 10 Caribbean countries. So basically I have exposure to all 10 of these countries. So I have trademarks in like 6 that are confirmed, registered, submitted and everything. I'm working on the other trademarks, but some trademarking process in some countries is like very long. Like Barbados is very, very long. Like it's a really long time. I have my Bahamas one. I've been waiting 2 years. They're backlogged. They're changing their whole intellectual property laws and regulations and all of that. So they are not even on the international standards. Their class system is completely different. So it's a working knowledge to be able to make sure that wherever you have exposure to across the region, you make sure that you file some type of trademark, protection for your brand, and make sure it's in the correct classes as well. Because like for me, I sell online as well as I have physical products. So I have to make sure that I'm registering in multiple classes where I'm protecting myself online, protecting my physical products, and I have different types of physical products. So sanitary napkins, menstrual cups don't fall into the same category, complete different categories. Bamboo wipes and all that as another category. So like the more variety you get, you have to be more aware of like what classes you fall in, what exposure you have, what markets you're in, and make sure that you cover yourself. Like I have a trademark in Great Britain and Northern Ireland. I'm not in Europe yet, but I know that I have exposure to that market. So I'm making sure that I file my trademarks in the respective regions to make sure that we protect ourselves. This is the Caribbean, full of pirates. We all know that. So
In our bloodline.
yeah, you just take it for what it is, and you got to be aware of that. There's gonna be somebody who's gonna try in every country, so you just got to be aware of that. And I know it's expensive. Yes, it is costly. Some countries are a bit cheaper than Cayman, so you can look into that as well too. But Cayman is very well competitively priced compared to the other regions as well. So I recommend everyone to look into trademarks. If you have exposure to various different markets, make sure you look into the trademarks for those offices as well. If you want to be on Amazon, if you want to be a registered brand on Amazon, you need to have a registered trademark for that as well. So that's important to know for a lot of Caymanians who want to get on Amazon as well.
Because I guess they want to make sure that they're protected from any contingent
Correct.
liability.
Right.
They are
in relation
very
to that
strict.
as well.
I have to go through a strict compliance process. I have to provide all of my testing reports for my products, like my sanitary napkins. I have to provide all my testing reports to Amazon. Otherwise, I'll take them off, and I can't be a registered brand and have my products on there. So
And they have a big section of their company that deals with policing
Yes.
intellectual property rights and taking
Yes.
down infringing products, etc. So you want to be conscious that you are protecting, but also that you are not infringing on others' rights when you are, starting out. Yeah.
Now, I know you ladies were scheduled to be here only until 9 o'clock, but I'm going to beg your indulgence to stay on at least for another 15 minutes because, when we return, we want to talk about also access to the register. How do you know whether if you are developing a product or if you're registering it, how do you go about determining whether or not
Yes.
it
exists already or
exists
something.
already, it has been registered in one way or the other as well. So, folks, it's the top of the hour, our headline news. When we return, the conversation will continue. Don't change that dial. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
Art Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. My pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning talking about intellectual property and, of course, the date for Intellectual Property Day was
Today.
Today, actually, the
Yes,
26th
yes.
of April.
Happy World Hockey
Yes,
Day.
World. So in the studio with me, we have Miss Catherine Dinsbell Powell from the Ministry, and Miss Candice Westby. You are the director of the International
Intellectual
Property
Property
Office
yes.
here in the Cayman Islands, and you're located on the ground floor of the Government Administration Building.
Yes, sir.
And we have Miss Melissa Adderley, who is a business person and who has lived the experience already, and
Yes.
she has.
Yes, indeed.
So she learned real early, about this, as well. So, ladies, I'm going to pass the mic back over to you.
Yeah, so if you can remind me, Ms. Osi, we said we were going to talk about, what was it, the registration and
How do you go about
Right.
A search, doing a search.
Search,
search,
right,
yes,
right.
yes, yes,
Sorry,
the
I blanked
list,
out there for a second. Yes, so you call that your freedom to operate search. So what you want to do is when you've designed your logo, your brand, you can come to our office on the ground floor. You don't need an agent to do that. And it's a $50 fee to search to register. And what we do is that we go through all the marks that are on our register to see if there's anything similar or identical to what you are planning to register. So we will give you a search report when we're done. We'll say these are the brands we have on the register that look similar or identical to what you might want to register. And then you can decide from there if you want to move forward, if you think yours is sufficiently dissimilar that you think it won't be an issue, or you might want to then make changes to your brand once you have gotten that search report. And when you're thinking about now expanding overseas, some registers are online. We're hoping to get to that point as well. But you can search the U.S. Patent and Trademark Register for free. You just go on their website, you put in your search term or your logo, and it will tell you if there's anything similar on their register. Same for the UK, Australia, etc. So when you're thinking about expanding, like Melissa did, you might want to also search those registers. And there are people who provide those services online as well, where they'll do a search worldwide for you. So you might want to look into those services as well to make sure that, you know, when you're thinking globally where I'll expand to, that it's not just okay here, but also in the other jurisdictions that you might want to get into.
So Ms. Melissa spoke about some jurisdictions where the process can be long and tedious.
Yes.
For us here in the Cayman Islands,
Yes.
what time period are we looking at?
We
What time
are not too far behind in terms of some jurisdiction. It's taking 10 years. And remember earlier I said by the 10th year, you should be renewing. So there are people who are filing renewal applications and they haven't even got the grants for the trademarks in some regional countries. The Canadian IPO, I think, is about a few years. I don't remember how long, but at least 2-3 years behind as well in processing. So we are proud to say we are in everything. We are now processing everything that's received this year, 2024. So we are up to date. It takes about 3 to 6 months to go from the filing to the grant, just because, as I said, we're just a 4-person team. So our examiner, we have one examiner and a trainee examiner currently in the office processing all these applications. So from 3 to 6 months, and keep in mind, 60 days out of that is for the publication phase. So
Gazette.
For the Gazette. And during that phase is where you can oppose if you think somebody is infringing on your rights.
And that publication phase takes place only in the jurisdiction of application.
Yes. So each territory has their own IP Gazette or IP journal. Most of us publish online. Some countries do still do it by paper, but most of us, our Gazette is published by Government Gazette, and that's completely online. So if you're curious to see what sort of brands are registering in Cayman, you can go on gazette.gov.ky and you can look through the IP journal, IP Gazette, and see,
I
you know.
see lots of people there do it all the time. You see TikTok and all them there.
I'm always fascinated when I see the applications coming in, some really well-known brands.
So what do we say to those persons who advocate for a free-for-all and say that, you know, while, you know, you have your ideas and everything else, that it should be out there for everyone to take advantage of it. But if you've put all of that work into something specifically, you know, what do you say to those persons, Melissa?
Like for me, you can license the brand if you love it so much. License it. Like, don't try to copy. Like, try to collaborate. Like, that's what a lot of people, I guess, in our type of people, we try to be in competition a lot rather than collaborating. Like, for example, how I'm in these various different countries. Like, I have licensed my brand to individuals in these various different jurisdictions. So that's how I have spread my wings to be able to expand to these different areas. So I don't believe in stealing someone's idea. Yes, someone can think of something as well as someone else, but someone may be first to market and trademarking it and producing the product and bringing it to market. You got to respect that. And if you want to work with them, collaborate, license the brand, franchise the brand, do something like that, because those options are available if someone was to market before you did. So that's my recommendation for anyone who's interested in trying to take someone's intellectual property, license or franchise or something like that.
And then if you think, sorry,
Sure.
Susie,
No,
I'm
you
just
go
going to
ahead.
say, if you think about the amount of energy our creatives, our innovators put into what they come up with, when you think about artists, this is their talent, and we always complain in the Caribbean that, we don't support our artists, or we don't, you can't make it as a career, but it's because we need to respect their rights. They've put in so much effort into the songs, into the paintings, the photographs that they take. So this is a way, IP is a way for those persons to get money to make a living off of the creativity that they're sharing with us. So I think it's just an exchange. You like my music, okay, you give me some, royalties and so on.
So I think that's the reason why in the Caribbean, we don't really get access to a lot of American and other international stuff because of that reason, that trademark protection. Like they know how it is in the Caribbean. We'll take their stuff and twist it up and do this and all that because we don't really value intellectual property as we should, versus some these other countries. So that's why a lot of products don't come to our region. You wonder why they're not in Cayman, why they're not down here, because they don't feel comfortable bringing their products to our jurisdictions and to be copyrighted, and they won't have any control over that. Our laws at the time, weren't really there. It's very different from overseas. So it's, you need to be very cautious when you're trying to take someone's intellectual property. Even with my words that were taken from me, ChatGPT didn't exist back then. So you can't even say that ChatGPT gave you that to put on your packaging. So it took me months to literally put those words together in the format. Like, it may seem so simple, but it legit took me about 6 months to put it together in that way, in that structure, but making sure I am not copyrighting someone else's information. Because there are tons of brands out there. We're all saying the same thing, but I have to make sure mine is unique to me. So it took me a long time to come up with that. So to find someone to go and take my words and just slap it on your packaging, how you respect me, that's not respect to me. That's not how you work together. So,
So Miss Melissa, your packaging and everything else, does it identify anything about being created or in the Cayman Islands, or it doesn't have a Cayman brand to it, or does it?
It doesn't have a full Cayman brand to it. It has my Caymanian love attached to all my products. But they are recyclable. Like, for example, my sanitary napkins are aluminum. What the touch that I do bring to my products is that they're packaged here in Cayman and in the various different Caribbean islands. So everything doesn't come all together for some of our products, because we have over 22 different products on our brand. Wow. So most of the products which can be packaged, they're packaged locally in each country. So I package stuff locally here in Cayman. We're in the Bahamas. We're in Trinidad and Tobago. We're in Guyana, Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Montserrat. They all package them respectively in their country. So that's the local aspect that we bring to what we have. We have to mass produce what we manufacture, and there's no manufacturing facility in this side of the world that could be able to do the capacity of what we have searched. I've searched high and low. I've done so much research, and there's no other manufacturing facility that I can find in the region. Another one of my goals is to be one of the first, if I could, to be able to manufacture these kind of products here in the West for us in the Caribbean.
Because it would make distribution so much
easier.
So
and much easier. Yeah. Exactly. Because I can get organic, all these materials that I can get here in the Caribbean, and then get whatever I need to source elsewhere, and then manufacture it in the facility here in the Caribbean.
Okay. Before 9:15 reaches us, I want to give all of you an opportunity for some closing comments. I want to start with you, Miss Melissa, and any advice that you would want to give to all of those listeners out there, anyone having any intention of going into business, and how do they protect their intellectual property rights as well.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate being here. And my advice for anyone who's listening is that if you have any slight feeling or idea in your mind that you feel like, I think like this is going to be my thing, this is going to be something that I'm going to go on with my legacy, like it really means a lot to me. It's feel like your baby, that kind of feeling you get with something. This is my baby. When you get that feeling, you need to start thinking about intellectual property, registering that, whether it's a patent, copyright, trademark, whatever the case may be. Start thinking about that, because in the long run, it brings value to you, your business, your brand. It's not just something that's to protect you for your intellectual property rights, but if you wanted to get investment from an investor or something like that, it adds financial value to your brand, to your business, whatever the case may be. So I really, think that you should think about that. And intellectual property is something that, yes, it's costly, but it's a worthy investment. Very, very thankful to the government, the ministry, for now, making those legislative changes where coming up that we don't have to use an agent as Caymanians locally anymore. So that barrier now is now out the window. So now you can start thinking about, submitting for your intellectual property. And, I thank you very much for your support. And anyone who did not know me in Cayman or know that I know Women's Haven, I would love your support. Our products are sold in all Foster's locations.
And they can see that on the screen. Hold it up there so that they can see that as well. Just hold it up. Yes.
I would appreciate your support. They're sold in all Foster's locations, all 4 Countryside, Airport, Cayman Bay Republics, as well as Kurt Market, and Rochelle's Beauty Supply as well, West Bay Pharmacy as well. They're sold in major supermarkets and pharmacies across the Caribbean region. So if you're in any other Caribbean country, and you can look us up on our website, womenshaven.com/locations. You can see all of our locations there. We're also launching a vending machine, the first of its kind, because we are the first Caymanian and Caribbean-owned female company of its kind. So we are launching vending machines across the region as well. So if you're interested in vending machines and the concept of that, you can reach out to me, and I'll be happy to work with any, company for their corporate wellness, schools who would like to have a vending machine for young girls to be able to have access to feminine care products more easily. And they're organic products. I know a lot of the times we do giveaways with products that are toxic, and these toxic pads and stuff, they cause adverse effects on women. So yes, you have period drives, but I would prefer for a period drive to have organic products where the long-term effects on young ladies isn't sending them to the doctors, infections and all this kind of thing. So, thank you very much. I recommend you get your intellectual property. It's very, very important. And, again, I appreciate being here.
Someone wants to know your social media handle. What is it?
Okay. Women's Haven social media handle is at the Women's Haven. So at the THE Women WOMENS Haven HAVEN. So at the Women's Haven, you can follow us there. We have over 180 something thousand followers on social media across all of our social media platforms.
Brilliant.
We have over 1 million reach across the region and across the world. So we have a lot of followers. So check us out there. And my Instagram is Mrs. Adderley as well, if you want to check me out personally.
And you spoke about the uniqueness of this particular product, and of course, me being of the opposite gender, I won't profess to know, much about it. But again, speak to the uniqueness of your product.
So Women's Haven, for example, our sanitary napkins is our #1 seller. Our feminine care wash and oil is also a top seller. But for our sanitary napkins, they are 100% organic. It has a graphene strip in it as well, which kills about 98.9% of bacteria. It's extremely absorbent. It is super thin. It has a 3D leak protection guards as well. The packaging is resealable, so you don't have to tear apart your sanitary packaging. So if you open it, I'll just open to show you. You can open it like this, and then just close it back without having to tear it and throw it away. So those are the unique aspects of our sanitary napkins. And when you compare them to the traditional products, you would definitely see off the bat that ours is exceptional compared to any traditional product.
Ms. Candace.
Yes, I just want to add that we had a series of events starting last week and this week to celebrate and observe World IP Day. And today we have our last event, which is free IP legal aid clinics. We have partnered with the Center for Business Development, which is another government agency that's doing wonderful work to help entrepreneurs, incubator programs, and so on. So if you'd like to register for that, that's today. You can pop in during your lunch hour from at the CICBD office on West Bay Road, right across from the wharf. And you can register for that on our website, CIIPO.ky. If you just click on the World IP Day button, you'll see the registration there if you'd like to speak one-on-one with some of our registered agents who have volunteered their time to give that advice today. So I want to invite you out. Look out for more sessions such as this. We'll have more workshops and lunch and learns because there is an interest in persons getting that information. We had a lunch and learn at CICBD yesterday, and it was a packed room. Everybody, we went through all the different areas of IP. I plan to do one on trademarks, so you can start thinking about what you need to do to get your brand registered and get it through that registration process smoothly. So keep looking on our website. You can come and visit us, ask for the CIIPO team at the ground floor in the General Registry Department, and we'll be happy to help you and give you some guidance as well. And thank you so much for having us today, and happy World IP Day.
And before you go, Ms. Susan, I'm going to ask you to bear with me because I rather than taking another commercial break, somebody wanted to know any advice about recipes. We see more and more, Caymanians, talking about those recipes because some people feel that we're starting to lose our traditions, and as
Stealing
generations go on and on, some the younger generations, some don't even know how to cook.
Yeah.
How do you protect your recipes?
Yes, so recipes you want to keep protected as a trade secret, and so what you do, like McDonald's, for example, KFC, these recipes they keep closely guarded as trade secrets. If you want to share it because you don't want to lose the culture, then maybe consider putting it in a little recipe book, and then it's protected by copyright. But if you don't want to go that route, then just take it down, but keep it a secret, keep it close. And if you make some commercial value from it, then it becomes a trade secret. That's also an IP right that you would have protection under. Yeah.
So, Ms. Catherine, as the policy implementer, we will give you the last word.
Seal the deal for us.
I just wanted to say again, Osi, thanks so much for having us today. It was great that we were able to come on World IP Day to share our message. I think, in the ministry, we're obviously committed to continuing to work on policies and legislation, and particularly that is going to foster grassroots business and help individual and micro and small business entrepreneurs in particular to get into business and to stay in business. And I think this fits very well with that overall commerce agenda. And certainly hearing Ms. Melissa's story, I think, she's obviously an inspiration to anybody out there who's thinking that they might want to launch an idea and certainly maybe learn from her experience. The team at CIIPO, like Candice said, is easily accessible and more than willing to give advice. And I think you'll be hearing a lot more about what's happening in this space between now and the end of the year. We'll do our best to keep the public informed and do some stakeholder consultation as well as we go about the policy and legislative change process. So we make sure that we're representing people's interests and getting some ideas too.
Okay, and one more thing very quickly. Miss Melissa off air earlier, before we started the show, she was talking, about funding for small businesses.
Yes.
And we know, for instance, there are some countries, as I think in the UK, only recently, where, female products, they were still highly taxed and everything else. So if we can talk a little bit about that, whether or not these things are duty-free, for women, and also the encouragement for small businesses like yours, what incentives governments can do to help you, from a financial standpoint as well.
Like for me, so with Women's Haven and what we do, like for financial standpoints and being able to access products, it's been difficult as a small business owner. In some jurisdictions, the governments there, they offer like grants and stuff like that, and grants aren't really offered here in Cayman. So that's something for me that's really needed for small businesses, because as a small business and the type of business that I have, like starting off, it was very difficult because I had to have a lot of investment, a lot of startup capital to have a storeroom full of inventory. And it's very hard for small businesses to be able to come up and be able to do that from the start, And so I feel that, there's some jurisdictions, I know, for example, in the Bahamas, they offer grants to small businesses throughout, and it really, really helps to bring them to that next level, to be able to help them start up. It's very competitive, especially in the market that we are here in Cayman, comparing to other big businesses. Like, we cannot I can't compete with them even if I wanted to compete with them. So if they even tried, I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, how do I compete? You know, so it would be great to be able to have those assistants for small businesses like myself, to be able to have access to some type of funding for businesses that make sense. They have financial statements. They have everything to be able to prove to you, because right now, if they want funding, I have to go to a bank. I have to give them my land, my house, my everything. Like, they don't care. Like, this is a huge risk to them, you know. So I think that would be very important for us to be able to look into that. What was the first part of your question?
Whether or not products like these are duty-free in the Cayman Islands?
In Cayman, so across the Caribbean, they're not always duty-free. So in some countries, they are still paying duty. In Cayman, they are duty-free now.
Good to know. Yeah.
I was a part of the spearheading of that as well. A lot of people don't know that, but I was a part of making sure, bringing it to the government's attention at the time, that we were paying duty on feminine care products and baby items. Brought it to their attention, and policy changes were made. I think the Honorable Chris Saunders was in power at the time, and he removed duty on feminine care products and baby items as well. And I was the person, you know, bringing that to their attention.
Great
So
to know.
Brilliant.
Great to know. Well, ladies, continue to enjoy your celebration. This has been a very enlightening conversation as well. I am sure that our listening and viewing audience enjoyed and learned a lot from it as well. Folks, we're going to take that long-awaited commercial break.